today's going to be a bit different as far as the Life in the Lobby volumes are concerned. This is volume 7. And what I've done is I've reached out to some of the old colleagues, some friends of mine from the industry, and to see if they would be willing to come and share a few of their stories. And I've got Alan Miller with me at the moment, which I'll just hand over to Alan so he can introduce himself and give you a bit of background as to how we know each other and what he's done, within the hotels, hospitality, and where he is at the moment. Alan, welcome, mate.
Thank you, Paul. Great to speak to you again. Well, as Paul said, I worked with Paul at a prestigious hotel in London. And I think when Paul got promoted, I think I took Paul's job. I think that's how it originally started. And then I worked for hotels, and I worked in that industry for many more years, and then transferred over to Canada with a hotel group. I was in Canada for 12 years. And then a year ago, I moved to Florida. Quite a ride. I mean, born in Africa, brought up in the UK, lived in Canada. So was it three continents and four countries?
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I mean, as I say, we go back. It must be. I'm trying to think now. It must be nearly 30 years, easily.
Yeah. I mean, I would have. It's around 1990, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I think when we worked together, it's. I mean, I've known you and followed your career for many years, but yeah, it's been quite a time.
Yeah. I was talking to some of our friends recently, and they said down, to give you a shout and to see if you're willing to talk about the incident they had. I think it was the Regent's Palace Hotel.
It was
in Piccadilly. We can name that hotel because it's no longer a hotel now.
Exactly, yeah.
So I really don't care about that, which is why I haven't mentioned any other names of hotels so far. I really don't want to get in trouble. And there was an incident that you was involved in. Do you want to just explain that? Because I found it so funny that what took place, the whole interest wasn't on the fact of you guys, but of another individual.
Yeah, it was funny. It was Valentine's evening. So the night was, I was just about to leave work. Had dinner arranged with my partner, and just phoned her and said, "I'm leaving now." Put the phone down, looked up at the screen in the security office, and there was a bag theft happening right in front of the camera. And so I thought, we can deal with this, and I can still get home for dinner. For my Valentine's dinner. And so I ran out of the side of the hotel, and I saw the person walking away with this handbag. I jumped on him. He was so big, he kept on walking with me hanging on him. Then my colleague arrived, and we sort of had an arm each, and we were walking back, literally across the road from the hotel. And I remember him fiddling with his arm, moving his arm around. What I didn't realize, he was putting his hand inside his jacket pocket and pulled out a firearm. And he, all of a sudden there was this loud bang. I had this hot sensation down my leg. And I still didn't realize.
I'm assuming that might have been the from the gun. I hope it wasn't from anything else.
It could have been both. So we jumped back. He looked at me, put the gun up to my chest, and clicked, and it misfired.
Wow!
And I still remember being so angry that he'd done that. And it wasn't heroic that I then chased him after that. I was just so damn angry.
I think the adrenaline takes over, doesn't it? We've all been with the guns pointed at us. But when that adrenaline rush comes on, you don't really know what you're doing. You just act. You just go.
Exactly. So I chased him with my colleague, and every now and again he would turn around and fire the gun at us, and we were ducking behind cars. And then he ran up to this Range Rover, school that was sort of in the side streets, driving along the side street behind the hotel in Soho, and sort of tried to carjack the car. So he put the gun up to the window and said, get out the effing car, get out the effing car. And I remember looking at the driver, and lo and behold, it was David Essex.
The singer.
Yeah. So he looked at me, he looked at the guy, and he just floored it and left me there. So now I'm back with this guy with a gun. So he fired at us again. And then he ran off. We chased him into Soho, and then eventually we lost him. And when we got back to the hotel and we called the police, there was, okay, we'll send someone around. As soon as we mentioned the word of who the driver was, half the Metropolitan Police turned up.
Forget the fact that this guy was using a firearm to shoot at you.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember the newspapers the next day. It was, David Essex in OK Corral in London.
OK Corral shootout or something, wasn't it?
Yeah. And it's like, no one mentioned what had happened before or what happened after. I remember the very last thing is it went to the Old Bailey, and I was in the elevator with this wonderful, really short, elderly woman standing there, really well dressed, and she had this Mars bar in her hand. And I was looking at the Mars bar, and it just seemed odd. And she said, "I'm bringing it for my son." So I didn't think anything more of it. And then when I was in the court, standing there, I looked over at the audience. It was his mother.
Oh, God.
I've been standing in the elevator talking to his mother before I testified against him. But yeah, it was. I've never had an incident like that in my life since. It was the craziest thing ever.
Yeah, I think it did a shock right the way through the industry there. So we weren't used to firearms. Let's put it that way.
No. And it's funny. My suit trousers were an exhibit because they had been burnt with the flash, so they're all sort of burnt down the one side. It was rather odd to stand there and see pictures of my trousers up on the screen in the court, saying, this is Exhibit 1.
Was he actually firing live rounds?
I don't know. I think they were blanks. I didn't hear anything. I mean, they never found out because they never found the gun. When they did find him, obviously he didn't have the gun on him, but he was known. But it certainly I had about a 1 foot burn down the inside of my trousers where he'd fired at the ground. But they never found it. But I've always assumed it was firing blanks or something like that because I've never heard a bullet hit anything near me.
I suppose if it had been live, which it may well have been, we don't know, is they would have found impact somewhere. They would have, they've been in the side of a car. It would have been ricocheting off walls. Well done, mate. That's a story to sell, around the dinner table, isn't it? And what have you done? Well, I spent a few years in hotel security. Yeah, I got shot at. Nothing really.
That was just part of my day. I was on my way home,
But the main point is did you get home for Valentine's evening?
I didn't.
Oh, you was in the doghouse.
I certainly was.
No excuses. I don't care if you were getting shot at. Couldn't you have come up with something better than that?
Exactly.
You was out in the pub again, wasn't you? I know. Oh dear. I loved the time in the industry. I thought it was a brilliant time. And when you think of the stuff that we did do and the things that we got away with and the things that we witnessed, it was good days. It was good times. I always remember that hotel, the Regent's Palace, when I was head of security there for a short time. The police from West End Central, they would send the probationers down to us for a day, just to induct them into what we did. And do you remember the photo album that we used to have?
Yes.
And you'd have a picture, and I'm trying to see the screen here so I can do it justice. And everybody we nicked, everybody we arrested for whatever the crime, whatever the situation, we always took a photograph and we named them so we had a good record. This was before this, we had all of the mobile phones and everything else. So it was an Instamatic camera that we would take. And if you looked at the photographs, all of them, and I'm just doing myself in the video here, they were all sort of here. You couldn't see the top of their heads. There was very little hair. And I remember a copper saying to me, he goes, why is the top of the heads all chopped off? I went, well, it is sort of a requirement. And he went, why? And I went, because you don't want to see them being done. Where we'd hold their heads back to have the photograph taken, because nobody wanted the photographs taken, really, did they? We had all the photographs were sort of forehead and down, because you couldn't see the hand holding the head back. I remember with that place, I spent 10 years at the other hotel on Park Lane, trying to keep away from that hotel, the Regent's Palace, and I had 3 years there, I think, and they were the best 3 years. It was phenomenal, wasn't it? That place, you just did not know what you was going to come into on a daily basis.
They always said that you could do 18 months there, and it would be the equivalent of 5 years anywhere else.
Yeah,
just with the volume of stuff that you would deal with, people that you would deal with for daily.
And it was right on the corner of Brewer Street and what was the other street? I can't remember now.
Yeah, it was on that triangle.
Yeah, but right outside was the meat rack, or what used to be called the meat rack, which is where all of the rent boys and the prostitutes and the drug dealers and everybody used to congregate. And we were dealing with them people on a daily basis. And I remember doing, and we also had the staff annex over the road where the staff used to stay. And I remember doing a presentation to head office with regards to, because every now and then we had to tell the incidents that we'd been dealing with and what's happening so far. And I was doing a presentation and I was talking about muggings, I was talking about assaults, attempted rapes, everything. I mean, it was a horrendous area to work in. Attempted murders we were dealing with, drug deals, everything that we'd come across and we'd had to deal with. And they went, my God, this is disgusting. I went, I'll never forget their face when I said, and that was just the staff annex. Now I'll tell you about the hotel.
So true, so true.
It was brilliant. Good days.
It was. Yeah. I remember times there where there was there'd be a particular football game on, soccer game, and the at one point I remember having the mounted police on their horses in the lobby.
That was Euro 96.
Yeah.
Euro 96. Yeah.
That's it.
Didn't they do a charge through the doors out onto Piccadilly? Yeah. They came in with the horses mounted up and then just did a charge out the doors to break up all the rioting.
It was crazy.
But that was the Half Sovereign bar, wasn't it?
Yes.
And there was who was it? It then became Callahan's, which was a great bar. It was a great place.
Right.
Yeah, Euro 96. I remember that one. I remember that.
I remember having there'd be two different soccer teams in there, or supporters, with none of them wearing any colours, but you could tell it was like a clear divide down the middle of the bar, and we were all there, and everything was fairly peaceful, but really busy. And this one guy walked up to me and said, "It's time that you guys leave." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Because we're about to trash this bar." And I turned around and everything went. The bar shutters came down, glasses started flying, chairs, and the whole bar just erupted into like a 200-person fight.
Yeah.
So I just discreetly just walked towards the exit and left.
Yeah, I remember that. I can't remember who's. I think at that period was Dennis there as well.
Yes.
Yeah, he was the head of security. I remember him always telling me that on one of those incidents where they were because the process there, which we took over, because I think I left there and Dennis went back to the other big hotel, and I ended up with because I had 3 hotels, but I was based at the the Regent's Palace as my main office. So I was
Right.
looking after 3 other hotels, and they were part of the Meridian Group, without
Right.
saying which ones they were. And I always remember him telling me that a story very similar to that, where it was always kicking off, and it was kicking off when we were looking after it. I was looking after it, and him grabbing hold of one guy, because when it kicked off, all we were doing is throwing the guests out, getting them out, making sure the civilians were not getting injured. So we literally throw everybody else out. And I remember Dennis telling me he grabbed hold of somebody by the shoulder to bring them out to the hotel, out of the bar, so we could just shut the doors and leave them to sort it out with themselves, and the old bill to turn up. And as he turns around, as he grabbed hold of him, this guy turns around with a Stanley knife with 2 blades in it, and he said, "Do you want tracks?" Yeah, which was the standard thing then. Yeah. Okay, we're going.
Yeah, we're going.
But then, we have some people there who would have actually quite enjoyed being part of that, to get involved and have a good scrap. Just trying to think of who. Do you remember Eugene?
Yes.
French Foreign Legion.
Yes, that's it.
What a guy!
I know.
I can remember with Eugene, I was head of security, and Eugene was one of the officers, and he just had that face.
Yeah.
That only a mother could love. Let's put it that way. No, he's a great guy. I remember being in a bar where, and I think it was rugby. It was the day when the rugby was on, and a couple of the guys having an argument, and Eugene had gone in there to pacify it, calm it down, and just have a chat with them. And I'd walked in, and I could see these guys, and they were big lads. And Eugene wasn't that big, but it was just a force to be reckoned with. And you could tell when things were going to go wrong just by the look on his face. He would change. He'd go from here to here, to that serious look. And I remember standing in there, and these guys were berating him, were having a go at him. And he's going, "Gentlemen," he said, "listen, you've been given this warning. If you don't stop this behaviour, you will be evicted." And that's when they started looking at him in his size and sort of go, "And who's going to do it?" And I thought, I've got to save them. I've got to save them from Eugene. And I stepped in and I went, "Gentlemen, can I just give you a word of advice?" And they went, "What?" And I went, "Please don't go there. Just don't go there. That you will regret it." And I don't know what it was, but then they seemed to have got, "Oh, God," sort of flustered and threw a few expletives at us and walked out. And I thought, I've probably just saved your life.
Yeah. I know.
He didn't hold back. Yeah.
That was one hell of a. I'll never forget the Regent Palace.
No, mate.
It was it sort of pushed every boundary of what you could handle.
Yeah.
Crazy.
The staff there were brilliant as well, and they dealt with things so much more than anybody else. And as I said, between us, I think we've probably done over 50 odd, 60 odd years in the industry, and nothing comes close to that place.
No,
nothing at all.
It was one of those places where you got so used to everything. I'd be talking to a guest at the front door, and they'd be asking for directions. And I'd point like that, and then I'd have to reach out with my other arm, grab a rent boy trying to come in. And I'm holding this guy by the scruff of the neck and carrying on talking to the guest.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah. I enjoyed my days there, and then unfortunately got promoted.
Yeah, true. No, and I mean, your career has been, one of those careers where a lot of people in the industry can look back on and saying, "Wow, it's you really did, you really were that achiever." I remember when I was there.
Security to director of security. Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Did okay for a person who couldn't even spell. Still can't.
You can spell. I can't.
I think on one of the other blogs I put in there about Tony on the back door. Ooh, Nelly said it. At the other big hotel. Where he used to underline all my spelling mistakes in red.
Yeah. He did the same thing to me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You had to have a word with him to stop him. He did stop. He didn't want to wear the pencil.
I remember at one point I was working the opposite shift to him, on the back door there, and I'd come in, and he was always reading.
Yeah.
But what I noticed, he was reading a dictionary.
A dictionary.
Yeah. He'd be sitting there like looking at all the definitions of each word, and it's like, oh God.
He was probably waiting for me to come on shift so he could have a go again. Oh dear. So you in touch with anybody still?
Not so much. Some people from the last hotel I was at before I transferred to Canada, you really have to work at keeping your contacts and your acquaintances.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, before you know it, it's 10 years has gone past and you haven't spoken to someone.
And then you feel embarrassed.
Yeah.
Which is nice. When I said, would you be happy to do this? And you said, yeah, I was over the moon. Because again, we haven't seen each other for, must be 10 years. Easily.
Yeah, got to be.
It's been good. Enjoyed it.
It's funny, so many of the people are still in hotels, I remember. But those who left hotels didn't leave the security industry.
No.
And when I've spoken to them, they actually miss the hotel industry.
Yeah. We all complained it was a pain in the backside. It was long hours and the pay wasn't fantastic, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
But it was the incidents, it was the stuff that we dealt with, and it was the fun and the laughs that we could have that made up for it.
It's absolutely crazy. There's one other thing I just suddenly thought of, if you don't mind, I'll quickly mention is I was at another hotel, very close to the Regent Palace, in my earlier days, and I was the duty security officer on a night shift. And there was a call that someone was knocking on this guest's window. And I remember thinking, that's a little odd, because they were on the 14th floor. So I ran up to the roof, went out onto the roof, and this is how, when you think about it, how we call it young and dumb. I walked up there, and he was on this little ledge outside someone's window with nothing below him. He'd sort of walked into the well and onto this thing. And I didn't even hesitate. I walked over, got onto the ledge with him. And I remember turning around and looking and thinking, I'm on a ledge. And there was the police had arrived by then, and he's looking at me, and you can see him just shaking his head. What the hell are you doing out there? And I said, come on. And I walked this guy back. And then it's only once we got downstairs, I thought, that's probably the stupidest thing I've ever done in my life. And the reason this guy was there, he had lost his key to his room. He thought that was his room. He was trying to get in the window. And, it was straight down below him. And there was this a ledge with no railing on it. And he didn't see what the problem was. He said, I'm just trying to get into my room. He didn't know it wasn't his room. That's the sort of places that I worked in those days.
But yeah, there was some fools, some idiots. But then again, it's all for good stories, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
I'm just trying to think. I had one where I refused to go up to a level, and it was New Year's Eve on Millennium Night, 1999, and I got sent to a hotel in central London. I was a regional manager by then, and my boss, which was Bill, and he sent me off to this hotel because I used to be head of security of it at one stage, and they were having problems with party goers climbing up onto the roof because they had an external fire exit. You just go up the side of the building, and they were partying on the roof. So I got there and spoke to the GM, who later became GM of one of the hotels I looked after towards the end of my career there. And we called the police, and the police were up on the roof. They managed to get everybody off, apart from two, and it was a guy and a girl. And they literally climbed right up to the apex of the roof, which was a dome, and there was a flagpole right in the middle, and they were clinging onto the flagpole for New Year's Eve, for Millennium Eve, and all the fireworks were going off around them. And I looked at the copper who was next to me, and I went, "Well, I'm not going up there." And he went, "Nor am I." So we stood on top of this hotel for New Year's Eve, and to be honest, it was a fantastic display But I had my family back at the hotel in Park Lane, and they were all watching the fireworks with there, and I was working. It was a nightmare. And when the fireworks had finished, and we finally got these guys down, the guy went, "I suppose I'm going to be arrested now, aren't I?" And the copper looked at me, and he looked at the general manager. He goes, "Do you want to press charges?" I don't know what we were going to press charges for. Trespass, I have no idea. That's not a criminal offence. And we went, "Nah." And he went, oh, really? And he was standing there shaking our hands. And we said, "Well, at least your girlfriend will have a night to remember." And he went, "It's not my girlfriend. I don't know who she is. I just promised her we'd see the fireworks." I just said, "I've got a great place where you can watch the fireworks." And they just left. Anyway, mate, I'm going to call this a wrap for the video if you don't mind. We might chat a bit later, carrying on. But thanks very much for that. It's greatly appreciated. I might give you a call again.
You're absolutely welcome.
Keep well in that sunshine out there.
I know it's getting hot.
You need some tan on.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to switch off now, mate. I'll catch you later.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Paul.
No, my pleasure. Thank you, mate.
Okay, bye.
I just want to say thank you so much there to Alan Miller for coming on and telling his stories, and I'm sure he's got a lot more, and we may well go back there again. I want to start doing this with more and more people, so if there is anybody who's interested in sharing your stories, then please just get in touch with me. I have a few people that have said already they want to have a chat, and I'm looking forward to doing that. So I hope you enjoyed Volume 7 of Life in the Lobby. Until next time, hopefully next week, you take care.